the Almost Perfect podcast. Welcome to the Almost Perfect podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Hi, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from... today we're doing me. My mistakes. Yes, let's learn from my mistakes. What is up, everybody? All of you, thanks for tuning in. Yes, tuning in, because I'm still doing radio now. No, this is a podcast, but people just click play. So thanks for clicking play on this podcast and on last week's podcast with Carvin Goldstone. We did gangbusters numbers on that. Now, we did decent numbers, like nearly 100, which I'm pretty stoked about. I didn't expect to really do thousands or anything like that. So I'm really, really stoked. And I got a lot of cool feedback from a lot of you who actually commented on this post that I put up earlier today, asking you if you guys wanted to ask me questions, which is a thing we're going to do just now. So yeah, I've had some really cool feedback from a lot of you. You guys have been vocal, you've messaged, you've commented, you've told me what you like about it and what you don't like a little bit. And that's cool. I'm stoked. And I want to, grow with this thing. I've never done something quite like this before. And I've never done something like this before, like where I'm just going to talk into a mic for an hour with nobody in front of me. I mean, I usually do that for 5 to 10 minutes at a time on the Winston on a Wednesday night. But this is a little bit different because at least then there are other comedians around to share in my sadness. I'm joking. The Winston's actually gotten a lot better lately. It's becoming a bit of a consistent vibe and I'm stoked. I thought that it would take some time to get there. It's been like a year and a half of us doing it weekly. It was, a thing that was done kind of monthly, bi-monthly, lots of different ways over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I don't even know how long comedy's actually been there. But since I turned it into a weekly thing last year, it's really picked up a lot. I've seen the Durban comedy scene get involved, get a lot bigger. Lots of people hit me up every week now to come and perform, and it's becoming a thing. So I'm stoked. I thought it would, eventually get there, and it is. And I don't know why I'm getting into that right now, but I'm rambling because guess what, motherfuckers? I'm a little bit high. And I am very happy that I'm doing it legally. I am smoking marijuana in my own home, and it feels good. Marijuana always feels good, but this feels especially nice to know that I'm not a criminal for just partaking in a herb, man. A little bit of a relaxant. Something that helps take the edge off and also helps focus me a little bit sometimes. Can also do the exact opposite of that. So we might go on some tangents tonight. Well, you might be listening to this in the day, so today or whatever. I don't know how I'm meant to phrase things. It's not time for me, so there we go. Sorry if you hear trucks and everything in the background there. I live in Umbilo. I live on Umbilo Road, and that means it can be a little bit noisy. I'm looking at my notes here. So this is episode, like I said, is going to be just with me. And I'm going to be answering some questions that you guys asked me on Facebook. Because I did put it out there on Twitter. And I did put it out there on Instagram. But those motherfuckers think they're too good for me. So they didn't reply. But the rest of you replied on Facebook. I got a lot of cool questions on there. And Aruna even messaged me privately on WhatsApp, so I've got a lot to actually get through tonight, and I'm a little bit nervous about it, just in general, having to talk for so long and keep flow going. That's going to be quite a challenge for me, but we'll see if I can do it. And also, some of these questions are very personal, so I've never really been one to shy away from sharing my personal life, really. I'm kind of like an open book, but as I've gotten a bit older, that does feel like it might not be a smart move. But also maybe I can do it in an entertaining way. We can all get something out of it. And you guys can learn from my mistakes. Because that is the point of this podcast. Maggie Brown suggested in the DMs that that's something I go over a little bit. Why don't I let you know what this podcast is meant to be about? And the whole thing is, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I've been listening to them forever. Since Mark Maron, 8 years ago probably, was when I first started listening to podcasts. And it's something I wanted to be doing pretty much since then, but of course we always put off the things that we want to do because we have imposter syndrome, although is it imposter syndrome when you haven't even done the thing yet? I don't know. Just, we have that whole thing of like, I don't know if I can do it, I don't know if I should do it. And so you take forever to actually get started doing it. So that's why you're only hearing this now instead of 8 years ago. But also it kind of took a while to figure out the direction I wanted to go in and what I wanted to do with it. But when I listen to podcasts, what I like to get out of them is the cool stories from people, about their lives that changed things a little bit, that impacted them, that you can get hope out of, that you can relate to, that you can see, hey, that's a person just like me. Like I love, there was this one, like when Kevin Bacon was on WTF, he was talking about how he went back to the restaurant he was working at after like a movie opening or whatever, because I don't know if he wasn't like allowed in or something, like he went to the premiere, but there was some issue or something, or he didn't feel welcome there or something. So yeah, he went back to the restaurant during, was either the premiere of the movie or like even like the Oscars or something like that. And that was just a weirdly relatable story about like, even when you get success, it doesn't necessarily feel like success, and like, you still get your comfort from where you were at, like, I guess. So that's kind of what I want to get out of people, and I want us to take what you take whatever you want to get out of this, from this. But personally, I want to try and learn some tricks of the trade. That is definitely a thing. One or two questions that I'll ask people will be about literally navigating the industry they're in and how other people can do it better. But it's also just, emotional stuff, and it's also just the everyday things that, define a person that I don't think, we necessarily always discuss in podcasts, although a few people do it pretty well. And, there are others that I'm looking at and that I'm learning from. So we'll see how this goes and where I get it. But for now, let's actually get started on the point of this evening. Yeah, we're going one take, one gun, machine gun. Let's hope I don't fuck it up. Let's start off with, since I mentioned, actually no, let's go. Darren Cock asks, what is your real and full name? As in, if I go to Home Affairs, what will I find? Well, if you go to Home Affairs, you'll probably find a very long queue. But if you want to know my full name, it is Darren Scott, quite simply. That's not what I was born, actually. I was born Darren Thompson, but once my dad left, my mom changed it to Darren Scott because that's her surname. And so that's what I was for most of my life. But then I guess I can tell you the story about how I became Bob and then Bob Perfect, since this is a thing that people ask me all the time. So I became Bob because I was a skateboarder at the beachfront skate park when I was a teenager, like when I was a young teenager. I think I was about 15, 16, 17. Around that time was when I met a few people there. I think the one girl's name was Minette and Adrian. They were just people who hung out at the skate park with, everyone else. And they one day asked me what my name was, and I was like, my name's Darren. And they were like, oh, I'll never remember that, because yeah, Darren's clearly a complicated name. And I was like, oh, well, then just call me Bob. And so they called me Bob because they thought that was amusing, and they were like, Bob, Bob, Bob. And that became their little thing. And then one day I had a party at my flat, and I invited them and a few other people and told people, hey, invite some people. And then they invited people saying, hey, come to Bob's house, because they knew me as Bob. And so then when everyone got you, they're like, oh, you're Bob. And so slowly but surely the name kind of took over. And also the one girl who called me Bob ended up becoming a bartender at Burn, which was a club I ended up attending a lot. And she would just always call me Bob. And so from there, it became a thing that everyone called me. I just kind of became Bob. Just standalone Bob, no perfect, no surname at all, no anything, just Bob. People would always sing the NoFX song Bob at me, which was kind of weird, because it's got nothing to do with me. I'm not straight edge at all. Or I mean, maybe in 5 years time, because I guess I have been spent 15 years getting loaded already, so I might have to quit drinking soon, and then that song will be far too apt. But yeah, so people were calling me Bob, and then I started doing stand-up comedy, because Bob was just my name then. From there, it became the thing, and everyone just knew me as Bob. No one even knew my real name. No one cared. And that was the cool thing about that scene back in the day, in the punk, hardcore rock scene at the Winston and at Burn. Everyone had a different name, basically. You had Meaty One, whose real name is Matt, and he was called Meaty One because whenever he'd order a pizza, he'd ask for the meaty one. There's Skeg, who was called Skeg because, well, his nose looked like a surfboard skeg, apparently. So not all of them were nice nicknames, but yeah, everyone just had a name that wasn't really their own, and you never really asked what someone's real name was. But then I started doing stand-up comedy, and I was just introduced as Bob all the time, just Bob, Bob, Bob. And then eventually it was like, well, what's your stage name going to be? And I thought about it, and my grand's surname is Perfect. Originally, that's her maiden name before she got married. And yeah, I figured that would be a pretty cool homage to her, and also just a really good nickname. And at that time I was probably a lot more arrogant. I was definitely a more confident, maybe not confident, arrogance definitely the correct word, because arrogance is confidence without reason. I was projecting a lot of confidence back then, so Bob Perfect seemed like a pretty good name. And yeah, that's how I got that name. Not that that was your question, but I figured since it was such a simple question, I might as well give a story to it. Let's see, what else can I figure out here? Let's go with Damien Roots. How much has social media helped you develop a public voice? Completely and utterly in a lot of ways. I wasn't great at talking to other people when I was younger. That's like when I was in school and stuff like that. I was, like I mentioned in the last podcast, I was hated a lot by a lot of different people because I was a abrasive person, still kind of am, but I've always just, not really been one to shut up, and kind of always caused fights or stood up for myself, depending on whose side you were on at the time. Usually wasn't my side. So yeah, I wasn't great at communicating with other people, and then I found MySpace, man. MySpace and Merc, MIRC, which was a chat room back in the day, long before Mixit and stuff like that. A lot of, became an adult there. But anyway, MySpace actually was where I first kind of, got a bit of a personality that other people, I projected a personality that other people kind of liked and resonated with. And I mean, it was the same thing in real life because I'd found the Winston and Burn, like I mentioned just now. And that was where I first found myself feeling accepted, even though I was still kind of an outcast there because I was a weird motherfucker, man. I would do the weirdest things and just say and do stupid things, just for attention and just I don't even know. Yeah, maybe we'll get into it just now. But basically, through social media, it helped me to connect with lots of different people around the world, which was cool because I was always into weird, obscure things, or at least I thought I was. And so being able to connect with people in America who were actually, producing the stuff that I liked, or part of the scenes where it was coming out of, a lot of the hardcore and that was coming out of America at the time. It was cool to interact with those communities and be a part of that. And then to also, from MySpace to Facebook to Twitter, I've definitely found it being a cool way to interact with other people where you actually are listened to, whereas I feel like I wasn't really listened to before. But I've also maybe figured out a way to be listened to. But nowadays I feel really weird when it comes to social media because I don't necessarily feel as in touch with the matrix, I guess, as I was when I was younger. I used to rabble rouse a lot more, I guess. But I also used to just try to be a lot more controversial. And I also, definitely, it's a weird thing to really think about or to quantify, but it definitely helped me develop a public voice, although I kind of wish I'd kind of step back from it a lot more, and that in a weird way it developed a lot of why people don't necessarily like me was because of a lot of what they saw me saying and doing online. Because a lot of people have said that they don't like my online personality, or used to say that at least, especially on Twitter, and especially I was quite abrasive. And yeah, so I wish that maybe wasn't the thing that I projected for a while, but that's probably just what I was going through, and that's why I was doing that. And it did get me attention, and I guess that's what I was looking for. And through the years, I've probably learned to be a lot more responsible with social media. And overall, I definitely think stuff like MySpace and like forums back in the day, and being able to discuss the things that I cared about with, people, gave me an outlet, it gave me a space, it gave me a voice. And now it's the platform that's become the biggest soapbox for most people. And weirdly enough, it's the one that I'm stepping away from more and more and trying to develop other ways to communicate with people, like this podcast, like with radio, like with comedy, writing, etc. It's, more and more I don't want to just, put stuff out on social media. So yeah, there you go. I think that's that question probably answered. The next one is by Nkocheleng Skosana, who us white people know as Rita, because we're white and that's how we do things. Anyway, she asks, how many gigs do you have on a whack month, and what's your average income per month? This is hilarious because, even on a good month, I don't get that many gigs. The only gigs I really get are the gigs that I set up. I'm not the most popular comedian in Durban by any means, and I'm okay with that, but that's why I'm just trying to create my own spaces and, create my own path and create my own come up, man. I'm also trying to work a lot harder on my material because I think I've been a bit inconsistent over the years, and I still can be, which is frustrating, but it's also just me. Like, I can do it better. I know I can. So maybe once I'm a bit more, what was I just saying? Oh, fuck. See, this is why you shouldn't do this when you're stoned. But yeah, when I could be more reliable, then maybe I'll get more bookings. But also, I think there's some personal issues with some people, and maybe there's also others just don't see me as, a headliner or, worth, booking good slots. I do get asked to do open slots, but I don't really take them as much anymore if I have to travel for them, because that costs me money and I can't really just afford to be doing that. I can't just be spending my money on, Ubering to fucking Durban North or wherever, just to do 5 minutes of comedy and then come home again. And then, I could be spending that time making other money. And that's the thing. Most of my money actually comes from writing and from, it used to be organizing events. But now, writing, sometimes DJing, and that sort of thing is really where I make my money. Comedy, if I'm lucky, I can get $1,000 or $2,000, and that's even with organizing, the Winston and stuff like that. With that, I'll usually walk away with $100 to $200 that week. I split the money with the headline and host there, so whatever comes through, that goes 3 ways between us. And then other than that, so some months, I walk away with, so writing, I make between 500 to $2,000, well, 500 to $3,000 in South Africa, depending on who the client is. But I make more of my money actually internationally. When you're writing for European stuff and for American stuff, you get paid in euros and dollars. And even though they're paying you a cheap rate for their side, you're getting paid a lot for outside because of the whole being paid in dollars thing. So that's how I actually sometimes make decent money. But most of the time, I'll usually walk away with between $4,000 and $6,000 a month, which I know some of you are like, how the fuck are you doing that? And well, that's just the thing. I've never been really money driven. I'm not a big capitalist at all, and that is something I'm working on. I am trying to make a lot more money at the moment. Well, not a lot more, and I'm not really trying that hard, so that's all a lie. But I am focusing on doing things that maybe inject more income into my life, and then I can do more projects with that, because that's why I care about making money, is so that I can do more things with it, which I guess most people kind of do. But I'm not really one of those people who's I need money so I can buy a nice car, because I don't give a fuck. I'd rather do a bigger festival or something like that, or invest in some shit maybe one day, depending on whatever projects come up in my life and however much money I have. That's something I'll hopefully like to do. But wow, I am just rambling there. No, we're not going down that road. How many gigs do you have on a whack month? What's your average income? Yeah, cool. I think that covers it. 4 to 6 grand. But some months I make 10 to 50 grand. There's been there's been some months where there's been a lot of money coming into my bank account for various different projects and jobs and stuff like that. And then I save that. I just put the money away, and I budget fairly well these days, which is something, that's how I can survive on a little bit of money each month. I mean, well, I think 4 to 6 grand is not a lot of money, and I think a lot of people listening probably think that as well. But also, some of you are like, "Yo, that's what I make," and yeah, respect to you for, living this life as well. I'm gonna go on to the next one there. What is it? Oh, how do you handle rejection by Maggie Brown? So these days, like, not really something I'm having to deal with too much. Like, if you mean in terms of girls, like, I've been in my current relationship for about 4 years now, or nearly 4 years now. And, before that, for the last few years, I hadn't really struggled to, be with the people that I wanted to be with. Like, I just, didn't try for people who weren't into me. Like, that was something that I learned, I guess, when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I definitely didn't handle rejection well at all. I was kind of like the worst of those guys that, like, is in the friend zone. And like, I say that intentionally because that's how I thought at the time, and was like, oh, I want to be with you. And then they would be like, oh, but I just see you as a friend. And you're just like, oh, why? And, you just be like, oh yeah, I guess I was abusive, like, to some people, and just shitty, and just like not good at the whole rejection thing when I was younger. Like, it hurt my ego a lot. And, it happened to me quite a bit when, actually, this reminds me of a weird fucking story. When I was in primary school, I was in class, and there was this girl, I'm not going to say her name because she still exists, but I was like, yeah, I had a big crush on her, and I kind of spoke to someone about, like, why isn't she into me? And the girl said, like, oh, when, like, your mom and dad got together. And then, like, I was crying, and because, like, I was feeling, like, really swag because I knew I was getting, like, dissed and rejected. Like, it wasn't like she wasn't doing it softly like the way I just did there. She was like being a bit swag about it. And like, I then lied and just said, oh no, my dad's dead. Even though he's not dead, I just wish he was. Nah, that's not even true. I don't really care. But yeah, that, like, was the thing. Like, I didn't really handle rejection that well, like, most of my younger life. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to, rather just swim, like, go where you're wanted. Like, that's a lot easier way to not get rejected, is to not, you can pick up signs from people. Like, it's pretty simple. But in terms of other things, in terms of work, in terms of that sort of stuff, I mean, fuck, like, eventually you just get used to it. Like, that's one of the things, like, I mean, with writing and with all these different things that you do, like, you put out your work and you hope people like it and you hope people want it or whatever. And sometimes they don't, and that, to me, can suck. It can hurt. It can be like, oh, fuck, what am I doing wrong? Why, why me? Like, I suck. I'm the worst. But really, like, it's one of those things that I also then listen to other podcasts, and I hear about the times other people got, their shit rejected and things didn't work out for them. And, see that life worked out, just fine for them. And I look at my own life and go, you know what? You'll probably be fine. Like, you've gone through this before. Like, you've done lots of other things. People like you, you are relatively respected in your craft. You're hired by big names and stuff like that. So, just carry on doing your thing. And so that's, I guess, how I handle rejection. I've just developed a bit more confidence in myself. I've just, I just go, cool, you're okay, you're going to be fine, you can live. And then that's just kind of how it goes. But when I was younger, definitely not. Definitely the whole world was crushing down on me, and my whole, like, I just couldn't live with shit. Like, any kind of rejection, not just from girls, just in general. Like, my heart would, like, drop and just fucking smash. I couldn't really handle emotionally. I would cry a lot with that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess I've grown a lot in that regard. So thanks for the question, because it makes me look at my own life. It makes me go, hey, you're getting better, I think. Musa Zondi, if you had to redo the last 10 years of your life, what would you do differently? I would spend less time on fucking social media. Holy shit, that is definitely one of the things. I would also drink less Coca-Cola, and I would have one less beer each time I went out, and put that money away in a savings account, and then yeah, just live off of that when like I'm older, because holy shit, the amount of fucking drinks I used to have, like the amount of money I spent, like just yeah, that's the kind of stuff that if I could redo, I wouldn't do as much. I'd probably have not like quit playing Magic the Gathering, because I got back into that like in later in my 20s. But when I was in my early 20s, I was like, oh, it's fucking lame and shit like that, you know, like I kind of rejected my nerdy self. And so I would definitely do that differently, because also my Magic collection would be worth like fuckloads more if I just kept the cards I had back when I was younger. Other than that, I don't know, probably a few less conflicts would be cool. Like, and when I say like I would like to spend less time on social media, a lot of that is, you know, based on, yeah, a lot of the fights and stupid shit that I used to have on social media. I used to enjoy the conflict and, you know, create quite a fucking stir. And that's the kind of stuff I'm not really that proud of anymore, and I'm not really that into. It's just not where I'm at anymore. So I kind of don't like that part of me, and that I did those sort of things. But other than that, you know, like it's hard to look at your life and go, what would you redo? What would you do differently? Because you're never going to get that chance to do that. Like, you're always just going to be stuck on this trajectory. And so if you want to change something, you just do that. Like, you know, if you look at your life and you go, well, what do I want to change? Then you can still do that. You still have that opportunity to do that. So yeah, that's kind of how I see things is, you know, if I want to do stuff differently, I'd try and do those things differently. That's why, like, you know, I'm doing underground comedy, and why we're doing the festival and stuff like that. It's just because, yeah, I want to take the actions instead of just thinking about what would I do differently. I actually just try and do them differently, I guess. Hope that's a good enough answer. I don't know. I don't really, want to redo the last 10 years of my life. I think for the most part, it's been really fun, really interesting. Like, it's taught me a lot. I'm grateful for a lot of the lessons, for the people in my life, for, you know, the good and the bad things. You've got to appreciate that shit, like, in life. Like, that's the way I feel. But yeah, other than that, talking like less shit on the internet and spending that time maybe creating stuff would have been better. How many people is too many people for a comedy gig roster? This is by Akil Maharaj, and this is Akil Maharaj with an R. Well, you know, people are doing 20 and 5 gigs, so I don't fucking know, man. Like, I genuinely don't know. For underground comedy, we've had to make the roster longer now because, yeah, there's too many people. We've got nearly 50 people on the roster, and so I'm extending it to like 7 or 8 people on each night, or each week, so that we can, just accommodate more comedians and get more people on stage. But personally, I don't know, like, I like different kinds of gigs for different kinds of vibes. Sometimes, like, my favorite's kind of like 2 openers, a support slot, and then the headliner, and then obviously a host. So it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. And yeah, then you're done. It's nice and simple, short one. Or you can even do that with a bit longer, you know, you go 10, 10, 20, and then the last guy does like half an hour to 40 minutes, depending on, you know, how much you're charging and who's there, like what the people are there for, or where you're at, you know. Like, if you're in a theater, typically you would do a little bit longer, you might do an interval. But yeah, with the Winston and stuff, I think we're about at the max now. I don't really like doing comedy gigs with super long rosters because people lose focus, and then, you know, they go outside, they smoke, they talk, and that kind of fucks up the whole vibe of the gig. But if you do like long rostered gigs, then have intervals, because there are like cool gigs that happen, you know, at like the Playhouse and stuff that have like 20, 30 people or whatever. And as long as they're managed correctly, I mean, I think anything can work, but then you get lost in like the whole shuffle of all of it. It's a weird one because, I don't know, I haven't really thought about it before, but I like a bit of a, you know, shorter roster with a bit of a slicker lineup. Then the next Akil Maharaj, Akheel Maharaj. Both of these guys are comedians, by the way, which is pretty cool that we've got 2 comedians with the same name. I mean, one of you does have to change it, just so you know that. Like, I know we've been talking about the roast battle for it, but I mean, I changed mine. Well, actually, if one of you says it's a racist thing, then one of you has to change it, because, like, I mean, I can never be Darren Scott because you know what happened there. Anyway, that Akil Maharaj says, can you tell us a few stories of moments in your life that have defined your inner set of rules? E.g., the time you got caught up lying and decided never to lie again. No, that's not me. Or the time you got your first pet and you always remembered how it made you feel, and that's why you like animals now. I don't know, my first pet, like, broke my heart because, yeah, it died when it was like 2 because its name was Bubbles and it was a fucking hamster. And so that's why I've always had a bit of a weird relationship with animals since. Anyway, that sort of thing. I don't know, it's a bit of a weird one. Like, it's not just one, there aren't like specific moments or anything like that. It's just a general, life thing. Like, seeing the world around me and reacting to it has developed my inner set of rules. And my inner set of rules are fairly flexible. Like, I don't know if that comes across with the way I am on the internet, but I definitely am not like stuck on one thing. I don't, like, I guess, yeah, I do have my morals, I do have my principles and stuff like that, but a lot of it does just come from reading, philosophy. Like, Sophie's World when I was younger was one of those books that definitely made me think a lot more about, who I am, about the world, about philosophy, about those sorts of things. So there, I guess that's kind of an influence there. But just growing up in Mbilo, man, like being like a white person who sees that, their life's probably a little bit better than people around them. And also then seeing like, you walk up the road from where I stay, where it's not poverty, but it's not exactly, the suburbs. It's like somewhere in between there. And, you walk up the road to Freer Road and it's a lot linear. You walk even higher and it's literally like fucking mansions and shit. And so the inequality in the world has always been a thing that's just bugged me. And I think that's not just inequality, but like just the way the world works in a way that doesn't actually work. Like the structures that are in place. Like I think a large portion of my issues that I had in school was because I hated like the hierarchy. I hated the power dynamics of stuff. And I guess I don't know what caused all of that. But yeah, that's just the way I've literally always felt. Like I've always just felt a bit at odds with the rest of the world, with the way things are, and feel like there's not enough justice and like things aren't really fair enough. And so I don't know, I guess those are the things that have influenced me a lot with regards to my inner set of rules. Like I do try my best to, yeah, like be fair, be reasonable, to treat others well. Obviously, I mean, that sounds fucking lame, but where you can, be respectful to everyone, be cool, like, and I do want equality for all. I am on the socialist like tip when it comes to things. I think that, we could have the whole world at our, like, okay, so when I was like 16, when I was younger, kind of got influenced by Che Guevara a bit there. Even though, like, I don't really read about, like, the bad shit he did, but just, him as an icon and figurehead for the whole socialist movement in Cuba. But I was also a bit into sci-fi and stuff, and I did see the way the world was going and that we would eventually be here at this point where, with automation being such a big thing. And I always thought that, automation would be the savior of a lot of our problems, that we could automate everything that we would need, from clothes to food to everything, like, any necessities. I mean, we can now print houses. So a part of me always just felt like that would be like what would happen, and that, everyone would be okay then, like everything would work out and we could give everyone everything and we could all work together for the social good, but then we wouldn't even have to work anymore. Like we could all just park fucking cheesy and do what we enjoy. And that's kind of like a weird thing that I've always wanted to happen. That's like, okay, fuck, man. I don't know if that answered your question at all, but that's what I thought about when you asked that question. And I am a little bit high, so fuck. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Are you enjoying this? Let me know. If not, fuck you. The next one is by Conrad Heinrich. Who's your favorite weed dealer in Durban? What's your go-to weed when you got money to blow? And what's your go-to weed when you are broke? Will you be cultivating weed for personal use in the future if you aren't doing it already? What do you think of the Concord judgment? And do you even like weed, or are you an addict? well, I do like weed and I am an addict. I mean, I can't like deny that. Like to say that I'm not addicted to weed would just be lying to myself. Um, but at the same time, it is one of those things that I feel like does give me, you know, it's a weird thing to talk about, I guess, because I know other people are going to hear it, and it's a bit of an internal dialogue that I have with myself, and it might be denial in some way, and even just to admit that's a bit weird whilst I'm rolling up a joint, and I'm definitely going to light it up. Um, but yeah, I do smoke weed pretty much every day, and I do find it helps my mood. Like, it genuinely, I'm someone who gets very tense and who feels the weight of the world a bit. Like, that's like how it feels to me. And so smoking marijuana definitely helps take that edge off. And I find I can concentrate more. I find I can be more productive, and that I can do more things like with it. Like, it genuinely feels like one of those things, like, you know, other people take other kinds of medicine for their ADD and shit like that. And, you know, you probably shouldn't self-diagnose yourself, and I definitely do need to go see a psychologist at some point about all of this. But yeah, I do like weed, and I am an addict, and I do find it helps me, and I do enjoy smoking it a lot. What I think of the Concord judgments is, fuck yeah, like, that's dope. Like, it's a good start. Although I don't know if I'm not keen for the legalization of weed, in that I'm not keen for the capitalization of weed. It's going to become such a business fucking thing. It's going to, you know, it's probably going to become inaccessible for a lot of people who, you know, have been in the game for a long time now. It raises a lot of weird questions about, you know, people who were arrested for it and are still in jail. Are they going to get their records expunged? What is the deal with all of that? But it's a good step. Like, we should be allowed to smoke weed. I mean, we should be allowed to grow it. We should be allowed to have it in our own homes. And cool, we're here. That's a good step. Will I be cultivating weed for personal use in the future if I'm not doing it already? I'm not doing it already, but yes, that's definitely a plan. I want to save up a little bit of money and invest in a grow kit. Because, yeah, why would I pay for weed if I don't have to? And then, who's my favorite weed dealer in Durban? Definitely not answering that question. What's my go-to weed when I got money to blow? And what's your go-to weed when you're broke? Both the same. I smoke the same weed. Like, I'm not one of those people who cares about, you know, like, super good fucking weed. I'm actually not a big fan of that shit that gets you like super high. I like a nice mellow, like, just chilled vibe. So I smoke a cross, which is just a cross between Swazi and Durban Poison, and you can get it from various places. And yeah, I feel it puts me right in the middle, so I like it. Next up, Gareth Morris Hale. What's the biggest mistake you have ever made, and how did you recover from it? Casual, chilled questions. Not at all fucking, god damn it. Okay, let's try. So the biggest mistake I made, like, just in like a straight up mistake, like a thing that like I wish I hadn't done because it cost me like quite a bit in a few different ways, is not putting water in my fucking car and having my head gasket blow on the way to the airport to go visit my girlfriend in Cape Town, and then having to sell the car for much less than I paid for it because I couldn't afford to fix the head gasket, because that would cost almost as much as I paid for the car. So that's a mistake that I definitely like feel like is like my biggest like just like life mistake. Like, that's such a fucking dumb thing to do, and it's impacted me, you know, pretty heavily, although like I don't have to pay for petrol, so, you know, some positives there. But that's, you know, how did I recover from that? Fuck, like, I just, you know, started walking again, started using taxis, and I haven't really stopped doing that since. I just use public transport and shit now. But emotionally, that shit like hit me pretty hard. I mean, you know, I'd saved money, I'd worked like quite a bit, and then I bought this car from my mom, and then, you know, I fuck it up, and it's just, you know, my family already thinks I'm a bit of a fucking irresponsible fuck up, so they definitely continued to think that after that, and that sucked. But I feel like that's probably not the answer you want from this question. And like, so what this really made me think about is something that I can't really consider too much of a mistake, because it turned out, you know, pretty good for me in the long term. But there is a situation that I regret the way it went down, and I kind of wish hadn't happened. With a few friends of mine, when I started. So I wanted to do this thing, like create like our own like odd future, essentially in Durban. Like that was the idea, get a group of creatives together with different kinds of talents, and to all push each other, to all as a unit, push each other's work. And so I collaborated with a few friends to start with this idea, but along the way it kind of shifted a little bit, and we started talking about being a record label, and then like doing PR for people and that sort of thing, and making it into more of a business. And eventually that kind of broke down because like I wasn't too happy with the power structures in place, and just with the direction, and just with the whole, I don't know, attitude and feel and vibe that was going down at the time. Like I don't want to get too into the specifics of everything, but shit went down that I just wasn't really cool with, and I felt, fuck it, fuck these O's, fuck everything, I am out of here. And I quite like publicly on the internet was like, fuck this shit, cause yeah, what was it, like sad life never rich, and then it was like rad life never snitch or something, I don't know. Yeah, it was a little bit petty, I can be, and that kind of led me to just rejecting the whole music scene essentially, because, well, not really, because I mean I still did my work, but I just, yeah, like, so once I pulled out of the whole thing, no one really followed me, man. Like, no one joined me on this side of the fence. Everyone was kind of still like in their little thing, and it was like, yo, we're just gonna keep doing this thing. I was like, oh, okay. Although I wasn't like, oh, okay. I was actually like, well, fuck you then. But a little bit of a fire under my ass, and it made me take stock of my own life and what I wanted to do. And it made me start focusing more on my own projects and on things like, comedy. Because, before that, I don't know, man, like I didn't take myself seriously enough as a comedian. Like, I didn't believe that I was a comedian necessarily. Like, it felt like I was just doing it for fun. Well, not like even like that I was doing it for fun, like, because I wasn't just doing it for fun. I was doing it because I wanted to be a comedian, but I just, didn't really feel like I was one. And so I didn't put all my effort into it, and I didn't focus on it as much, and I focused on other people's careers and trying to build their things. And, from there, I just, figured, fuck it, let me focus on my own comedy career. Let me focus on underground comedy. Let me, start a comedy festival. That was something that Carvin Goldstone and I chatted about last year, and we were actually meant to work on it a lot more together, and it's something that I think is going to be a lot more involved in next year, which is pretty cool. We're still discussing the exact details of all of that, but we'd definitely like his guidance on the festival. But yeah, but one of the things that I did hate about that situation was that I landed up not talking to one of my best friends for like nearly a year. And that fucking, like, that hurt a lot, because we'd see each other out and we just like wouldn't talk to each other. And it was weird, and it was petty, and like, just fucking, like, it's a shitty thing, like, to do. And, eventually one night we were both out, and like we were in the same circle of friends, and just kind of just like spoke. We were just like, fuck it, whatever, and became friends again over like time. But that's even something that took a long time to recover from, and that I felt like rejected, even though I kind of withdrew. So, but people not taking my side, and people sticking to the other vibe was, like, it felt like, I guess that goes back to the rejection thing that Maggie so that's like coming full circle there. And I guess I don't deal with rejection as well as I imagine I do yet, so something to still work on. But how did I recover from it? Well, we eventually became friends again, and I just focused on the things that I figured would make me happy. Not necessarily not even make me happy, but just the things that I want to do, the impact I want to have. And it's no longer really within those scenes or that sphere. So that's kind of the vibe, I guess. I hope that answered your question. Next up is Catherine Jenkins. She says, everyone's getting so deep, and I know the answer to this question because of your history stage diving, lols, but boxers or briefs, and why, Bob? Why? Well, I know the like history of day stage diving thing. You've probably seen pictures, and you would have seen me wearing briefs back then. And that's because at the time I'd actually done an advert for an upstart underwear company called Corrupt. Now, I did like a character for them called Underwear Man, where I went around harassing people in real life, like for reals. So I went around fucking with people. Like, this was when there was the news, like no smoking, like within like so many feet of the entrance of a place. So I'd run out with a tape measure and like try and like measure from the end of someone's smoke, and then like knock it out their hands if they were like closer than the thing, and like, you know, like that kind of shit. So because of that, I just got given a fuck ton of briefs. I had a lot of them for many years, and so that's why I wore those. I do like the more boxer brief, like, you know, the shorts ones, to be honest, and I also freeball it quite often. So hope that's the answer that you wanted from that question. Now, let me see. Aruna asked a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to answer these now. And I feel like this is getting a bit long. Sorry, I don't know if anyone's going to listen to something this long where I'm just rambling and getting stoned whilst... Well, I mean, you guys asked the questions, so fuck it. Let's carry on. Who were your biggest influences growing up? Rage Against the Machine. there was a time where I wouldn't admit that. Like, I would just be like a little bit ashamed that that's what I, you know, grew up listening to. But yeah, they were big influence in my young teen years. Chris Rock was like a big influence. I watched Never Scared and Bigger and Blacker like a million times, like at least growing up. That was just my shit. Skateboarding, skate magazines, Blunt magazine, that was a big influence in my life. South Park was a big influence in my life. Like I mentioned, Che Guevara, like as a concept, you know, that was sold to us as like, you know, a righteous dude and not a murderous dude. Yeah, you know, I was pretty into him at the time. And then when I got into hardcore, I really got into a band called Every Time I Die, and that influenced me a lot. Like, maybe not for the best, but there were some nihilistic lyrics in there that I kind of clung to for a while. But yeah, like those were some big influences. Every Time I Die especially. And I just saw that Keith Buckley, the lead singer, he's just put out a book, which I need to get. Because his lyrics, like, once I found, like, there's a song called Ebola-Rama. I could probably recite the whole thing to you now, but I won't. And yeah, like, once I just heard that, like, it was just, fuck it. It was all over. I was like, this is my band. This is everything. And then I got into, yeah, the hardcore scene and stuff like that, and that just became my life. But in the early days, yeah, Rage Against the Machine, Chris Rock, South Park, that sort of thing was hugely influential in my life. Like, I definitely attribute, like, watching Chris Rock to being why I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. Like, that, yeah, without a doubt, was one of the things that just made me go, I want to do that, even though it was also like, I could never fucking do that. And yet, here we are. What was the best thing and worst thing of running, or the biggest stumbling block about organizing the Heat City Nights Festival? Shit. Biggest stumbling block is always money, although this year was pretty dope because we had Spa come on board and sponsor us. And so didn't have those issues. I managed to pay everyone. Yeah, like we had a bit of marketing budget. We got word out there. People came through. But the hardest part is, you know, I did basically most of it myself and don't have a lot of PR power on my own. So next year, that's something we're going to look at. We're going to get like a proper PR person involved to handle that. And then the comedians, man, that's another stumbling block because some people just don't fucking take things seriously enough or don't appreciate things like enough, and they don't see, you know, what you're trying to do for them, I guess. So that sucks a bit that some people weren't as enthusiastic about it as they could have been or as well prepared. But then I say that and I look at my own sets, like I've got the footage now, and I was just like, ugh, you were just crap. Like you didn't prepare properly. Why? And then at the same time I was bitching about other people. So I did have some other things to do, but if other people can, you know, put on festivals and also perform well, then I need to be able to do that too. But yeah, being able to like not having to, because I wanted to perform as well, but performing and organizing and also just taking on as much as I did on my own is probably the hardest things or the biggest stumbling blocks. But those are things I'm going to work on for next year, where I'm going to have more people involved, hopefully, and hopefully can get a bit more money now that we've had sponsors and I have stuff to work off of. Who are my comedic influencers? Bill Hicks, like, definitely, especially, like, at least philosophically, with the whole fuck you attitude about everything. And also, I do think he was ahead of his time, even though now he might seem a little bit outdated. I mean, it's weird how life works that way. So I definitely, early on in my comedy career, he was one of the guys that I just, like, consumed everything. I read, like, biographies on him and just super inspired by his path in life, although, you know, having conflict with everyone, probably stuff that he regrets. Well, you can't really regret anything when you're dead, but yeah, just listening to other people talk. And so when you're younger, you definitely think conflict's like a good thing, or at least not a good thing, but something you should do. And yeah, as you get older, you're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't burn all those bridges. But either way, Bill Hicks, yeah, I like a lot of what he does. Even though I'm not like on that storyteller tip, like, although I'm trying to get there, so I guess I just need to work on it. And yeah, Burnham is another comedic influence. I just love the structure of everything he does. He's so fucking funny. He's just, like, he to me is just the best living comedian, and he's not even doing stand-up comedy anymore because he gets anxiety and has like panic attacks and stuff on stage, which, you know, I can kind of relate to. Not that that's happened to me, but I definitely get not feeling comfortable up there. And yeah, just hold on one sec. But when I saw his first show, Words, like, fuck me, like, I was done. I was just like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's just structurally so sound. It's just so well written from start to finish. You know, like, it builds, it ebbs, it, like, there's so many different things that he does, like, in each of his show. It's just so deep, it's so fucking cerebral. And yeah, like, I worry that, I mean, I'm not that smart. I'll never be able to do that. And you know what? That's fine. I just have to keep doing me. But fuck, when that exists, it does make it hard, like, to be a stand-up comedian, I think. And then, lastly, I guess I'll say Jim Jeffries. And that might be a bit of a controversial one for some people because of my general, you know, outlook on life, and that being a misogynist and all that's bad. But also appreciate the character, appreciate what he does. I think he's fucking hilarious, and in comedic context, I do still, yeah, appreciate it. Like, I'm not even going to try and justify things or anything like that. He says some horrible things, and I still fucking laugh at them because I find him hilarious. I think some of his takes on the world, and definitely he's grown up a lot more as well, and he's someone who will even say, like, hey, some of the things I said back in the day, bit shady, but also fuck it, because it's all just comedy. And while I'm also on that tip of, yeah, we should be careful with our words, I'm also like, kind of like, oh, fuck it is just comedy. Like, did you laugh at the joke? Was it a good joke? Then cool. Like, but then again, people, not even, like, comedy is subjective and stuff like that, so you're always, no matter what, I guess, going to offend people, and intent does matter, and blah blah blah. I actually don't want to get into that conversation right now, especially since, I guess, another one of my influences, the last thing, like, Lenny Bruce would be lame to say because I didn't grow up, you know, listening to him or anything. I found him a little bit later in my life. But after reading How to Talk Dirty and Influence People, which was like his book, I definitely felt like influenced. Like, he was a true influencer. There's some truly incredible, like, stories that he tells in that book. And I also appreciate his spirit and why he did what he did and how he did it. And, you know, like, his material doesn't really transcend time. Like, it just doesn't. But at the same time, well, not, I mean, some of it does, obviously, but some of it just sounds pretty whack by, like, modern day standards. But you can get what he was doing, and for his time, like, he was doing something extraordinary. And yeah, it influenced me in the weirdest way, in that I kind of finished reading it the day before the infamous set at Splashy Fen, where I swore God in the face. Well, not in the face, but on Easter Sunday, which is something that actually now I probably would never do. Like, I'm glad I did it at that time with what I was feeling and how I was feeling about, everything. But yeah, I read his book and I did some mushrooms. And then the next day I performed like the most blasphemous like set I've ever performed in my life on Easter Sunday at Splashy Fen. I got pulled off the stage. I got like a 3/4 page in the newspaper. People all over the country kind of knew who I was. And that was interesting for a little bit. But yeah, I don't do that sort of stuff anymore. I'm not really looking for that kind of attention. Like that feels weird. Like you don't want people like talking about you for those sorts of reasons. So I'm still glad I went through that, and you can kind of blame Lenny Bruce for that. If you could pick any career in the world now, what would it be? Well, I would be a stand-up comedian, a podcaster, a radio host, and a music journalist. But like other than that, I would like to be a wrestling commentator. Like that's always been my dream job. That's always been the kind of thing that I would love to do. I love wrestling. I think it's campy and fun and just over the top and theatrical. And I'd love to create the words behind that. I'd love to be the one to go, "Oh my God!" Except for not like that. I'd actually need to work on that a lot because I don't think my current voice suits wrestling commentary that well. One day maybe I'll do a little thing and we can see what that sounds like, but not tonight. And wow, there's still more. Sorry. I definitely don't think anyone's still listening, but this is cathartic. I'm enjoying it. Would you rather be rich and alone or poor and in love, assuming you had a choice in either? I mean, this isn't even a contest, of course. I would rather be rich and alone. No, I'm kidding. Poor and in love, it really isn't like a question. I don't really care like that much about money. I feel like I'm probably going to be poor most of my life, but maybe not. I am working towards not being poor. I am trying to earn more money than I'm earning at the moment and save more of that money so that long term I can do more things. But at the same time, it does all seem kind of fucking pointless when World War III is about to start at any point. So yeah, poor and in love. Like I am a romantic at heart. Like I always have been ever since I was much younger, even though I don't know if romantic or obsessive is the correct word to use there, but I'll just go with romantic. And next up, what do you think is the best and worst thing about the Durban comedy scene? This one's a bit hard. The best thing is just how friendly we all are. Like in general, like a lot of comedians are very friendly, very helpful. Getting into the scene's pretty easy. Although, I think stuff might change. There has been some conflicts of late. We're reaching more of a fever pitch when it comes to people, or like a critical mass is probably more the word, like the terminology I was looking for there. So yeah, I love just how friendly everyone is. That is one of the best things about it. It's got some of the most genuine, cool people, and like people aren't as conniving and thriving as they are in other places. But that also means the worst thing in the Durban comedy scene is probably apathy and people being lazy and being lackadaisical and not working hard enough on their things and not like being ambitious enough to organize more gigs and try and do more things. We could have, but the comedy scene is growing and more people are doing things and they are thriving in those things that they're doing. So, it's coming along nicely. I definitely think we are reaching a cool point in Durban comedy. Like it took us a lot longer than everywhere else because we started behind everyone else, but yeah, we're developing and I like it. And yeah, that's what I think the best and worst thing in the Durban comedy scene is. So what skill or talent do I have that no one knows about? I could play ice hockey. I used to do that when I was younger. And temp and bowling. I'm fairly good at that. My mom used to work at the temp and bowling alley down by the beachfront when I was younger. She also used to like play for South Africa and stuff like that. Well, she made the South African team. She didn't actually get to represent them because she couldn't afford to go overseas, which is fucking tragic. But anyway, she, still at least achieved that. And yeah, so because of that, I temp and bowled a bit when I was younger. And my first job was actually being the scorer for birthday parties for temp and bowling, which was pretty fun. And yeah, other than that, I can ice skate pretty well because I played ice hockey for quite a while. So that's, not a skill that most Durbanites would have. Other than that, I don't really know that no one knows about, things. I'm pretty good at Magic the Gathering. I won the store championships at the Unseen shop the other day. literally on Saturday, which was cool. Like, I've done that 4 times now. I've won their store championships, and they're actually one of my sponsors now, which is pretty cool. I keep saying that, which is pretty cool. So that's going to be something I hopefully edit out, or something you're only going to notice now and not retroactively go, wow, he was saying that is pretty cool the whole time. But yeah, I play Magic the Gathering quite a bit, so I'm pretty good at that. But I do post about that a lot, and I think that's something that people know about. But I do think that my ability to roll joints is fucking impressive. And that is that. Yeah, I'm done. I can't talk for much longer, to be completely honest with you. This has been really fun, but also kind of emotionally draining. And I'm not too sure if I'm going to regret putting this out. I don't really want to listen to it again. Like, I don't want to listen back and hear all the shit I just said, because holy shit, I already hate my own voice just having headphones on, doing DYR and doing this. Like, it's been a whole day of just listening to myself talk, and I'm feeling kind of over that now. And I feel like I'm going to enjoy this joint. I'm going to be chatting to a few different people over the course of this week. I'm going to try get like 3 or 4 of these done with other people, and hopefully we can learn from them. We can have cool conversations. We can, I want to put other people on. I want to let you in on interesting people that you might not already know. That's definitely something that's important to me, because, the Durban creative scene doesn't get put on enough. Like, we don't get the media coverage because we don't have the media channels. And so that's something we really do need to do more. And so that's something I'm going to do with this podcast. So yeah, I'm going to introduce you to some people that you might not know, or I'm going to get you to really know some people that you already kind of know. And we're going to see if we can learn something from them. Anyway, if you've listened this long, thank you very much. You can find me on Twitter at BobnessMonster and everywhere else at IHateBobPerfect. Thank you so much. And yeah, please send me your comments and reviews or anything like that. You don't need to put it on iTunes. This isn't on there yet. But you can literally just tell me, hey, that was long and fucking rambly, and don't ever do that again. Or, you know what, Bob, that was actually really interesting. And it's okay that you kind of stumbled a bit, because it's called the Almost Perfect Podcast.